The thing I love about Bill the most is he's relaxing to be around because he's boring.
As you look around the room and all the folks who have come here tonight for you, it's a veritable who's who of, okay, nobodies.
The fact that the councilman was late for his own roast drew lots of laughs, while his recent battle with cancer drew inspiration.
I think just to follow that, how happy we are to see Bill Rosendahl, how happy we are to see him fight, how happy we are to see him healthy and committed to helping people and have this tonight.
Your courage and your resilience is a model for all of us. When no one would have asked you or expected you to be on City Council on important issues during your treatments, there you were. There you were every time. And you are loved by me and so many other people. God bless you, and thank you for everything, Bill.
Councilman Rosendahl will leave office when his current term ends on June 30th. I'm Anita Bennett for LA This Week.
Proceeds from the roast will go toward a fund established by the Press Club to help public access journalists get their shows on television. Local ball players can practice their swings on a pair of newly renovated baseball fields in Highland Park. There are a lot of improvements to mention. Gil Reyes has the bases covered on LA's newest Dodger Dream Fields.
The kids of summer take the field to practice their swings and round the bases.
Nice field. I love what they did with it. All my friends are here. I think I'll never leave.
Highland Park Recreation Center receives not one, but two renovated baseball fields in time for summer. Included are new backstops and bases, a solar scoreboard, also new turf and irrigation systems. Dodger greats Bobby Castillo and Sweet Lou Johnson there on opening day. So was outgoing Councilman Ed Reyes. The councilman who has represented this community for years throws out the first pitch.
One of the things I'm going to miss more when I'm out of office is going to be the smiles of the children and that energy that you see from the kids. When you look at parents and they see that pride in their face, that's invaluable.
It's nice because I get to meet new people.
The LA Department of Recreation and Parks pitched in to make improvements. So did the LA 84 Foundation, which provides surplus money from the 1984 LA Olympics to fund local youth programs.
We are committed to bringing fields like this, programs like this, everywhere in the city.
And to have the Dream Field, it's exciting, it's great for our community.
Play ball. In Highland Park, Gil Reyes for LA This Week.
The Dodger Dream Field program has also recently renovated Little League ballparks in Reseda and Harbor City. One food bank is joining forces with the LA Public Library to make sure kids don't go hungry this summer. How you can help conserve water this summer and helping to raise lupus awareness. These stories and more in City Beat. It may be summer vacation, but hunger doesn't take time off. That's why the Los Angeles Regional Food Bank is providing nutritious meals for kids this summer, available for the first time at local libraries, specifically the Downtown Central and Pacoima libraries. Any child at those libraries during lunch who want a meal will receive one. The launch of the expanded program helps kick off the organization's 8th annual summer meal program, which serves meals to children who normally rely on school lunches during the school year. The summer meal program kicked off on June 10th and will end when school begins. To find other locations where summer lunch is served, go to lafoodbank.org. Neighborhood councils are community-based organizations with oversight by the city that advocate for and implement crime reduction programs and street improvement and beautification projects, among other priorities. Recently, the Board of Neighborhood Commissioners singled out 7 of the over 90 neighborhood councils with Empower LA Awards for innovative programs.
We had a lottery, and we asked the people of the neighborhood to determine for themselves which were the most problematic locations that needed fixing in our streets. parks and on our sidewalks.
Council President Herb Wesson praised members of these groups during a celebration at City Hall.
Give our neighborhood councils a round of applause. They work hard. They work hard for free.
The 7 neighborhood councils honored were the Sherman Oaks, Silver Lake, North Hills East, Harbor Gateway North, Mid-City, Mar Vista, and Park Mesa Heights neighborhood councils. The LA Department of Water and Power says customers need to step up their water conservation this summer following a dry winter, the second in a row. As a result, for 2013-2014, the utility is projecting the lowest ever water deliveries from the LA Aqueduct and the highest ever purchase of imported water on record. One way to help reduce water use is by following with the city's mandatory water conservation ordinance that limits outdoor watering to 3 days a week. Which days of the week depends on whether you live at an odd or even number address. Watering is prohibited between 9 a.m. and 4 p.m. Go to ladwp.com/WC for more information. Council President Herb Wesson recently led the LA City Council in honoring Lupus LA during Lupus Awareness Month at City Hall.
There are more people with lupus than there are people living with AIDS, cystic fibrosis, MS, and other illnesses. But yet it's one of the diseases that is less recognized and that there's less awareness for.
Lupus is a chronic autoimmune disease that can impact the brain, heart, and kidneys. 1.5 million Americans live with lupus, 60,000 of which actually live here in LA County. As the weather heats up, children and adults are getting a chance to chill out at the Hansen Dam Aquatic Center. As Anita Bennett reports, the facility's swim lake is now open to the public.
The summer season arrived with a splash at the Hansen Dam Aquatic Center in Lakeview Terrace.
I've been coming here since my baby was born, and it's great because they can walk into the water. You don't have to worry about the kids falling in or anything, and the zero depth is cool.
It's a nice area. I would recommend it for a lot of people to come here.
Dozens of families took a dip in the water as the park opened its 1.5-acre swim lake for summer. And this year, there are some new rules in place. Small children must wear yellow wristbands, and they cannot enter the water without a parent or guardian who's been assigned a green wristband.
If we see a parent wearing the green wristband and we don't see the child, we're going to ask you. Same thing with the child. If we see the child, we don't see a parent. So again, safety is always our #1 priority.
Another rule, mandatory bathing suits in swim lake.
We want to make sure that we keep the water clean. We don't want people, working on their cars and they're using the same shores to come in and swim here at the Hansen Dam Aquatic Center.
While some park visitors may think the rules are a little strict, Aquatic Center workers say if you break them, you may just have to contend with the LAPD. I'm Anita Bennett for LA This Week.
Hansen Dam's swim lake is free to children under 18. For adults, the admission price is $2 with a city-issued library card and $2.50 without one. In this week's list of things to do, a walk around the Lake Hollywood Reservoir, an equestrian ride, and the latest Ciclavia event. The Los Angeles Department of Water and Power invites you to a 3.4-mile walk around the Lake Hollywood Reservoir on Saturday, June 22nd. This event is a great opportunity for residents to enjoy scenic Lake Hollywood and get to know the LADWP staff while learning about the water infrastructure and the city's future water supply. Meet at 8 a.m. at the corner of Lake Hollywood Drive and Montlake Drive. This walk will take approximately 1 to 1.5 hours. Bring water, snacks, sunscreen, a hat, and comfortable shoes. Unfortunately, dogs and other animals are not allowed on the walking trails around the reservoir. You must RSVP by Friday, June 21st. You can access the link at our Facebook page at facebook.com/LA This Week. And if you are looking for a trail ride on Saturday, June 22nd, Councilmember Mitchell Englander is leading one at Corral 54 at 10 a.m. Corral 54, a division of Equestrian Trails International, will host the ride out of the newly opened Aliso Canyon Park. The loop ride will be about 2 hours long. Lunch will be served. A $5 donation is suggested. Aliso Canyon Park is located east of Reseda Boulevard between Cessnan Boulevard and Rinaldi Street in Northridge. RSVP by calling 818-892-3862. And there is yet another ciclovia right around the corner, this one stretching to Wilshire Boulevard. On Sunday, June 23rd from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m., the latest bike and pedestrian-friendly event will connect downtown LA and Miracle Mile via 6.3 miles of car-free streets. The route will take you through downtown, MacArthur Park, Koreatown, Mid-Wilshire, all the way to the Miracle Mile. Whether you're on a skateboard, a bicycle, or on foot, you'll get to enjoy art, architecture, and lots of food along the route. Go to ciclavia.org for the complete route and other related information. And that's a look at some upcoming things to do. There's recently been a baby boom at the Los Angeles Zoo. Anita Bennett introduces us to a trio of baby chimps.
Three new baby chimpanzees are the talk of the LA Zoo.
They were really cool, and I thought they were really exciting.
What did you think of the chimps?
They're really cute.
The youngsters were born to 3 different mothers over the past 10 months.
Zuri is almost a year. She was born last July. Buki was born in March. She's almost 3 months. And our unnamed infant was born in April. She's about 6 weeks.
The 6-week-old is the latest offspring of Gracie, one of the zoo's most popular chimps. She also gave birth last year, but that baby died after it was attacked by what zoo officials say was an aggressive adult male. This time, zoo officials say they've taken steps to make sure it doesn't happen again.
Right now, the male that was in that group is not with the infants. The male that we have with the infants is a really gentle, kind male. He's been around infants before, so he knows how to treat babies. He's an experienced male.
Chimpanzees are native to Africa, but their numbers have been dwindling because of deforestation, hunting, and disease. These 3 new arrivals bring the total of chimps at the LA Zoo to 17, making the city a leader in efforts to protect this endangered species. The chimps are currently on public display, so if you'd like to come and see the newborns, well, head on down to the LA Zoo. In Los Angeles, I'm Anita Bennett for LA This Week.
According to the World Wildlife Foundation, there are fewer than 300,000 chimps left in the wild. Well, that's going to do it for this edition. Thanks for joining us. I'm Ellen Chang. A reminder that you could catch us online at lacityview.org. You can also follow and like us on Facebook. We leave you now with more sights and sounds from the recent Celebrate LA Festival at Grand Park. See you back here next week for more of LA This Week.
With all the zombies?
Alert LA County. It takes the surprise out of disasters like zombie attacks. And without surprise, they're out of a job.
Alert LA County is a free automated system which sends out information about emergency events via telephone, text, and email.
Any skills besides flesh eating? Pick that up.
Events may include disasters, evacuations, safety notices, and if necessary, zombie attacks.
Next.
Register at alert.lacounty.gov.
Almost 80% of car theft occurs because of unlocked doors. Locking your doors takes a matter of seconds and can become so routine that you may forget whether you locked your doors or not. But it's worth the effort to double check. The more successful thieves are at taking items out of a car, the more chances they are going to come back to that area. Don't let our town be that area. One simple precaution is to hide or cover any valuable items when leaving your car unattended. Simple actions like these can prevent you from becoming a victim of property theft. The Los Angeles Police Department would like you to remember, lock it or lose it.
Hi, I'm Craig Irwin in Los Angeles.
Hi, I'm Trenton Irwin, and you're watching LA City View, Channel 35, Our City, Our Channel.
Sergeants, would you please call the members, have them report to the council chambers. Sergeant, please call the members. I want to thank Mr. Alacon, Mr. Koretz, and Mr. Zine, and Mr. Labange for being part of our on-time caucus. You know it's here. colleagues, I need the EPAs. Mr. Reyes is here. Mr. Parks is here. Good morning. It's Friday, June 21st. I want to welcome you to your Los Angeles City Council. We do not have a quorum at this time. We will start today's activities with a presentation from Mr. Paul Koretz. Mr. Koretz, you have the floor.
Well, thank you, Mr. President and colleagues. Like all of you, I'm proud and delighted that Los Angeles is stepping up to the plate so often for the sake of animals and their well-being. We've recently adopted humane and trend-setting policies regarding banning cat declawing and puppy mills, and those breakthroughs are crucial. Clearly, LA has a great love for animals as well as a profound sense of responsibility and compassion. And that's why it always seems so rewarding when Council President Herb Wesson adopts out a dog from our shelters, as he invariably succeeds in doing whenever Animal Services brings the dog to Council for adoption. I think we all share in the happiness of that moment and the joy even one single animal can inspire in many people. And while we do our best to find homes for those animals, what's equally important is that we make sure that animals who have homes don't become lost or separated from the people who love them. There are about 165 million pets in the United States, and tragically, about 4.5 million of them go missing each year, and about 1 million are never found again. And that's why today, June 21st, is an important day, because today is Microchip Day in the city of Los Angeles, and June is also Microchip Month nationally. Microchip Day and Microchip Month help raise awareness about the importance of microchips. Maximizing our pet identification practices and technology leads to reuniting many pets with their families. As more pets are microchipped with a subsequent up-to-date registration, more are likely to be returned home if lost, instead of facing possible euthanization in crowded shelters. Today we're joined by many champions of microchipping, two of whom will be speaking next. Our very own Brenda Barnett, General Manager of Animal Services, as well as Amy Gilbreth, Executive Director of the amazing foundation known as Found Animals, which has donated over 50,000 microchips to Los Angeles area shelters and has established the Found Animals Registry, a free nonprofit service dedicated to reuniting lost pets with their families. Before Brenda and Amy speak, I'd also like us to welcome some other heroic friends of animals who are here with us today. From the Found Animals Foundation, Chris Oshie, Teresa Bayi-Kian, Aaron Nelson-Purdy, Tennille Carter, Jonathan Chavez, and Vince Wong, who many of you will remember from his exemplary service here in City Hall years ago as a council staffer. From Spay for LA, Sandy Sagastumi. From Adopt and Shop, John Barrett. From Fix Nation, Hillary Seinmozinski. My apologies, some of these names are difficult today. And Karn Myers. From Spay Neuter Project of Los Angeles, Ariana Butorovic. And from Best Friends, Candy Crawford. Others not able to make it to this ceremony include Angel Dogs Foundation, Data Mars, and the American Animal Hospital Association. And now I'd like to invite Brenda Barnett to speak about Microchip Day.
Thank you. Good morning. The Department of Animal Services recommends microchipping for horses, rabbits, cats, and dogs, and that's something that we very much value in our friendship with Found Animals. There are many things that I could say wonderful about Found Animals because they work with us on a lot of different fronts in addition to microchipping. But if you ever have an animal get lost, there are two things that you need. If you have a dog, you need a LA City dog license and you need a microchip, and you're guaranteed to get that dog home safe and sound. Thank you, Found Animals.
Hello, council members. President Wesson, thank you for having us. So unfortunately, a pet gets lost in the United States every 7 seconds, and many of them do end up in our shelters, and unfortunately, some of them don't get reunited with their families and end up being euthanasia statistics. Everyone should always have a collar tag on their pet as the first line of defense, but microchips are the only form of permanent identification. You need to remember, though, it's not a LoJack or a GPS. You have to actually register that chip number in a database and keep your information up to date if you ever move or change your phone number or your email address. As you might imagine, with a name like Found Animals, we feel that every lost pet deserves to get home, and that's why we've invested so much in providing low-cost and free microchips to shelters and spay-neuter clinics and citizens across the Southland, and why we've developed a free registry. In honor of Microchip Month, some of our fantastic partners in the city of Los Angeles are offering microchipping with a lifetime registration for just $10. So if any of you or any of your constituents don't have their pets microchipped, please visit Adopt and Shop, Angel Dogs, Fix Nation, the Spay Neuter Project of Los Angeles, or Spay for LA between now and the end of the month to get an incredibly affordable microchip, and be sure to register it. This is particularly important because the 4th of July and fireworks creates the single biggest lost pet event of the year, and Brenda's shelters will be very full the week after the 4th of July, and we'd like to get as many of those pets as possible back to their homes. So thank you, Councilmember Koretz, for letting us be here today, and thank you all for making this Microchip Day.
Thank you, Amy. And now it's my honor to present these proclamations saluting Found Animals Foundation and declaring June 21st to be Microchip Day in the city of Los Angeles. Congratulations, and let's hear it for these great people and all our animal friends. Thank you, colleagues.
Let's give them another round of applause. Okay, it's my understanding, Mr. Clerk, that we have a quorum. Would you please call the roll?
Alarcon, Buscaino, Englander, Garcetti, Weezer, Carrasco, Corey, Labange, Parks, Perry, Reyes, Rosendahl, Zion, Wesson, 10 members present, and a quorum, Mr. President.
First order of business.
Approval of the minutes.
Reyes moves, Zion seconds. Next.
Commendatory resolutions for approval.
Buscaino moves, Krikorian seconds. Next.
Mr. President, items 1 through 3 are items for which public hearings have been held. It should be noted for the record that the council file for item number 1 is 12-0218.
Okay. Specials, members, specials. Let's prepare to vote.
Mr. President, yeah. I've been informed that an amending motion for item number 2 is forthcoming.
Okay, so let's hold item 2. Okay, let's prepare to vote on the remaining items. Let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
10 ayes.
Mr. President, items 4 through 9 are items...
if I could interrupt you, Mr.
Certainly.
Parks. Forthwith on item 1 for Mr. Parks. Okay, now continue, Mr. Clerk.
Items 4 through 9 are items for which public hearings have not been held. 10 votes are required for consideration.
Okay, without objection, those items are now before us. Cards?
Mr. President, we have cards on all items.
Then we will hold those items. Can we move to the next section?
Yes, sir. That brings Council to the supplemental agenda. And item 10, a communication from the Energy and Environment Committee has been distributed and is before Council for consideration. A public hearing was not satisfied in committee, and therefore it is an item for which public hearing has not been held. 10 votes are required for consideration.
Okay. Without objection, that item is now before us. Member specials, Mr. Buscaino.
Item 10 for Mr. Koretz.
Item 10 is being held for Mr. Koretz. Thank you, Joey B. Cards?
There are cards on item 10 as well, sir.
Okay, then we'll hold that and we will move on.
Mr. President, on the continuation agenda, item 11 is an item for which public hearing has been held.
Specials member on item 11? See none, let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
Mr. Labange.
Forthwith on item 11. Forthwith.
Forthwith on item 11. I've just been informed, Mr. Clerk, that on item 10, we've already set. Oh, no, we do. Okay, I stand corrected. Okay, what's next?
Mr. President, Council has the special meeting agenda before them. However, if entering, I might remind Council, if we were to take it up, we'd have to complete all of the items on the special, or you could certainly return to presentations.
How many items? Okay, well then what we'll do, we will not go into the special hearing. And so at this time, where is Mr. Labange? Mr. Labange, if I could get you to take over for 1 minute.
Special presentation by the President of the City Council, Mr. Herb Wesson, at this time.
Thank you, Mr. President. Could somebody please locate Mr. Zine?
Calling Dennis Zine. Dennis Zine, report to 200 North Spring Street, code 2 high.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members.
Sergeant, escort Mr. Zine to the President of the City Council, please. Thank you. That's KMA 367 out.
Members, when I retired as Speaker of the California State Assembly, all of the members chipped in, Mr. President. As I was saying, when I resigned from the presidency, retired, all of the members chipped in and bought me a farewell watch, which was beautiful. Now, I wish I had the money to buy farewell watches for our members who have served this city with honor and distinction, but I don't. So you're going to have to take the little token of my appreciation that I've put together for each and every one of you. Now, Mr. Zine, I didn't need you per se to come stand next to me, but since you're here, do we have something with Mr. Zine's name on it? look at that. Look at that. Michael, you're supposed to let them take the paper off. Duran, you give me this stuff. Michael is wrong. Okay. It should be a name. Is there a name on each one? Beautiful. Would you bring me the next? Guys, please bring me the next one. This is not a difficult task.
This is good.
Thank you. Mr. Alarcon. Taxpayer money was not used to acquire these works of art from a artist in the district that I represent.
Thanks for the fancy tablecloth.
Oh, nice. Look at you. Mr. Reyes. Beautiful. Hey, guys, you got to see Mr. Reyes. It's Ed Reyes with hair. Okay.
I like it. We remember those days.
Miss Perry.
Give me 5 minutes.
You look good. Yours looks pretty good. All right. She said, okay. Mr. Rosendahl, Bill Rosendahl. I told you yours had hair. Hey, Miss Perry, if you could come back, we want to take a group shot, please. Bill, last but definitely not least,
What do you got, Herbie?
Bill Rosendahl. Listen.
Billy. My God, look at that, folks.
Beautiful. Let's take a...
Does it look like free Westchester?
If we could take a shot with you guys, and I just want to thank each and every one of you for your service to the greatest city on the planet. Each and every one of you deserve to be commended. I mean, Bill, for all of the great things you've done. Jan, who single-handedly, in my opinion, has revitalized the southern portion of downtown. And I don't have the time to go through the other projects. And Mr. Reyes, all your work on planning the LA River, and Mr. Zine, who is always our police conscience and just one of the hardest working members of this council. I will miss you all tremendously. You are assets, and you brought a lot to this chamber, and we need to eliminate term limits. They really do suck, people, trust me. Let's give these great members a round of applause. They deserve that and more.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Now I'd like to call on Mr. Reyes for a special presentation. Since you're out there, Mr. Reyes, this would be great.
All of you, come on. Council President, colleagues, I'm a little off balance here because this is a complete surprise for me. Usually we schedule the presentations, but it turns out the community of Lincoln Heights set up this presentation. And so when I walked in, I saw everybody here and I was just like completely amazed. And so I'm not sure what to expect. But I want to first thank them. And since I'm not sure what's going to happen, we'll let them take the microphone. We have Steve with us. And Steve, why don't you just come on down? This is Steve Cass from Lincoln Heights, please.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Thank you.
I'm not sure.
Good morning, Mr. President, members of the City Council. I also want to say I'm president of the Lincoln Heights Chamber of Commerce, president of the Lincoln Heights Business Improvement District, and many members of the City Council have attended our chamber luncheons. So I think a lot of you are familiar with the Lincoln Heights area of Los Angeles. I'm here today with members of our Chamber of Commerce, our Business Improvement District, and people from the community. We're here to thank Ed Reyes, our councilman, for his service to our community and to the City of Los Angeles. We have two presentations to make, one on behalf of the Lincoln Heights Chamber of Commerce and one on behalf of their Business Improvement District. And what's real interesting to us, over the years, our councilman has given us many proclamations, been at our luncheons and community events, and we're here today to reciprocate and to give you a proclamation. And if I may say, it's pretty good looking. I think we've outdone the council's artists.
Oh, gosh.
So you recognize something that you've given us these, right? I want to read this, and to council members here, I think it's real important to listen to the words. It comes from our heart, from our community. And it says, Council Member Ed Reyes, 1st Council District of the City of Los Angeles. Our chamber and our community are deeply grateful for all that you have done as our councilman. You will be remembered for opening up the LA River to the community, for establishing our Lincoln Heights Business Improvement District, and for always supporting the Chamber sidewalk sales. You have been a friend and supporter of our business community while always looking out for the best interests of the residents of Lincoln Heights. Thank you for being our councilman and for your service to our community and to the City of Los Angeles. June 21, 2013, it's signed by me as the president and every board member of our chamber. It's about 25 people that are attesting to our thanks to our councilman. I want to make this presentation to our councilman, Ed Reyes. Next, I want to introduce the Executive Director of the Business Improvement District of Lincoln Heights, Misty Watsu, but also I want to make note of something very important on this plaque. Ed is supporting our sidewalk sales. The motion was first passed at City Council chambers in 1981, authorizing the Lincoln Heights Chamber of Commerce to have sidewalk sales close the street of North Broadway for the sales. This was done in 1981. The motion was made by Councilman Art Snyder, and Ed has supported these sidewalk sales. We're the only community in the City of Los Angeles since 1981 to have sidewalk sales every year since 1981, never missed a year. Full support from the councilman of our district. We thank you for that, Ed. And you've set important precedent. Now let me introduce Misty from our Business Improvement District.
The Lincoln Heights Business Association of Los Angeles would like to thank Councilman Ed Reyes for all he's done for the City of Los Angeles, for Council District 1, for the Lincoln Heights community, and for the Lincoln Heights Business Improvement District, and for opening up the LA River. In honor of the councilman, we would like to present this paddle so that when you kayak, you can think of us. And being a non-kayak, I only have half.
Thank you.
Here's the bag.
Oh, there's the bag, okay. Well, first of all, I want to say thank you. I think this is the first time I have to do a presentation, and I realized it wasn't from me, but it came from the community, and I thank you from the bottom of my heart. Colleagues, I grew up in Lincoln Heights and in Cypress Park, and to me, I've been blessed to have such a strong team working with me. Marisol Salguero, who's here, has been the deputy for the past 4 years. Jose Gardea, my chief of staff, and all the planning staff that's been with us. I want to give them a big round of applause. I accept this in their honor. To the city staff, those who come out from Bureau of Sanitation, all the departments, DOT, for all their lights that make it safer for the kids to cross a very busy Broadway, all the way through all the departments. They've been tremendous. Rec and Parks and Lincoln Park. The quality of life has gone up because of the city's help, the city's support, but more importantly because the community has organized itself to defend itself, to demand what's right, what's needed, and my biggest pride is to know that they understand their power, they understand the civic process, and they will be able to assert themselves in the future, understanding that the community deserves more. So I want to thank them. I want to thank them all for this pleasant surprise, and I appreciate this so much. Thank you very much.
And when Ed's presentation clears the center aisle, Ms. Perry for a presentation.
Okay, so then we have, I don't know the lady's name. Nicole Velasquez, okay. All right, great. I am joined here by Mark Wilson from the Coalition for Responsible Community Development and Nicole Velasquez, Christian Ahumada from Clifford Beers Housing, and Jim Bonner, who is also with Clifford Beers Housing. And today it's my pleasure to present the people and the organization who were deeply involved in the renovation and rehabilitation of the historic 28th Street YMCA. The 28th Street YMCA was the first YMCA west of the Mississippi River to allow African Americans access to recreational and boarding facilities and became an important part of the community. And it's interesting to note that before I left this morning, I read a long article about Paul Williams. And so I'd like to highlight the fact that this building was designed by architect Paul Revere Williams, and it was the leading organization for African American young people in Los Angeles. It hosted several important social gatherings and meetings over the last 80 years. By the early 21st century, it had fallen into great disrepair. With the help of the Coalition for Responsible Community Development and Clifford Beers Housing, the building was rescued in order to better serve the community and to create additional affordable housing units and a community gathering space. This historic renovation rehabilitated ground floor spaces, converted the upper floors, and constructed a brand new wing for housing. It repaired and restored the architectural details and incorporated LEED building standards. Local young people were given the opportunity through CRCD to restore original floors and moldings that have preserved the building's history and paid respect to architect Paul Williams. The project was recognized this year by the Los Angeles Conservancy as a 2013 Historic Preservation Award honoree. In addition, it has brought 49 permanent supportive housing units for transitional age youth and young people to the Vernon Central community of South Los Angeles, and the first Vernon Central Workforce Network Youth Source Employment Center as a resource to put young people back to work from the community. for their tremendous work for preserving this crown jewel of South Los Angeles, and for the City of Los Angeles. I would like to thank this team and wish them all the best. Thank you. Would you guys like to say anything? Say your name so people know who you are.
Good morning. I'm Jim Bonner, outgoing Executive Director of Clifford Beers Housing. And I'd just like to say that it was a real pleasure to do this project. In good measure, because we're working with Jan Perry and her team, drew together the folks from the building department and the planning department and the fire department that we needed to really restore this building to the importance that it has had in the South Los Angeles community. And it was just wonderful working with our partner, CRCD, Mark Wilson, and Nicole. And I'd like to thank them and also introduce our new Executive Director, Christian Ahumada.
Very nice.
I want to say thank you for this award, and I want to express my deepest gratitude to Councilmember Jan Perry for her endless support in these type of very difficult and challenging projects, and I hope to honor Jim's work by continuing to do more of these in the future. Thank you.
You want to take a quick word? Just a quick word for CRCD.
Mark Wilson with CRCD. The historic YMCA is a jewel in the Vernon Central community of South Los Angeles. I want to thank Jim and Clifford Beers, but last and definitely not least, I want to thank Councilwoman Jan Perry for her leadership and making sure that project turned around, and it is truly a beautiful project. I know Nicole doesn't want to speak, but I want to thank Nicole Velasquez, our senior project manager who worked entirely on this project, and thank you for this recognition, Councilwoman.
You're welcome. Thank you very much. Let's take a quick picture. Okay, come on, you guys, come up here. We'll go in the back. Okay, we'll go in the back now. Okay. You got all your stuff? Okay.
Mr. Rosendahl? Mr. Rosendahl for a presentation.
Come on up, Westchester. Come on over to the mic. Well, informal, stubborn. God bless you. Yes. Looking forward to your presentation. Good job. Before I do everybody else, I know we're talking to the world out there because that's what Channel 35 does. And I want to thank Channel 35, frankly, for the C-Spanish kind of coverage they give of our city government. And this is an exciting moment, and I want you all to know that in the 11th District, we've done a lot of connecting with nature. And frankly, this is Westchester. It used to be called Westchester High School, but it's the Westchester Enriched Science Magnet. The Westchester High School, urban farming. Why would old Rosendahl be out here for urban farming? Obviously, I believe in it. We are here to honor the high school that has been invited to participate in the Aspen Institute Challenge. Let me explain what that is. This is pretty exciting, folks. This is how it works. The Earth's biosystem creates a constant recirculation of life throughout the food chain of which humans are a part. The single most important element in the food chain is water, needed by all of life on Earth. All life needs it, all life contains it. The aquaponic method mimics the relationship of plants, water, and fish as it develops into the oceans millions of years ago. Fish eat other fish. Their waste is a rich fertilizer that feeds plant growing nearby. Plants die, feed other plants, as well as fish. It's all connected. I visited one of these aquaponds in Mar Vista, and I was at the groundbreaking of this one in Westchester when we did it. And now it's done. And I want to congratulate the students. The best of luck this summer at the Aspen Institute in Colorado. I also want everyone here to know that this is a project that has the potential to end food throughout the city and the world. Can you imagine that we could end food deserts, meaning people will be allowed and able to eat throughout the city. Now, I'd like to introduce the great principal, Bobby Carr, to say a few words. And Paula Daniels is off to the side. Get a shot of her. She'll be working on a single statewide initiative to expand the aquaponics. So I'm looking forward to your leadership on that level. That's going to be great. Great, 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 as I say. All right, Bobby, here's the cert. I want you to introduce the various people. Tell us what brings you here today and what we expect to have happen in Aspen.
Thank you so much.
You're up, big guy.
First, I'd like to thank Mr. Rosendahl and the entire City Council for the honor of being invited here today to represent the Westchester Magnets. I know that public education reform has been a concern for this body for quite some time, and I'm thrilled to bring you an example of an LAUSD high school where students are embracing hands-on, relevant learning that is preparing them for prestigious colleges and viable careers. The reason we're here today is because this team of students behind me recently won the first ever year of a new contest called the Aspen Challenge, which is sponsored by the Bezos family and the Aspen Institute. As a part of winning this competition, they'll be going to represent our school, our district, and our city in Aspen, Colorado at the Aspen Ideas Festival, where some of the greatest minds from around the world come together on an annual basis to share solutions to global problems. This is the first time in the history of the Aspen Institute that they've actually invited teenagers to go represent the next generation in bringing the next generation solutions to global problems. This particular team in the Aspen Challenge was faced with the challenge of addressing the urban food crisis. The idea that young people in urban communities lack access to healthy, affordable, sustainable food. In response to this challenge, our team of students transformed our school's garden into an urban farm to grow and distribute organic, sustainable produce to students and community members. This project included designing and building an aquaponic greenhouse on our campus. Although this project is in the very early stages of implementation, it has already captured the attention of organizations in the Westchester community, including our local neighborhood council, which we would like to thank for providing funding to support the further development of this project. Again, I thank you for validating the work of our students, and I encourage you to hold these students up as an example to the entire city of Los Angeles, showing how the young citizens of this city can truly lead transformative change in our communities. Now I'd like to present to you the person who co-coached this team with me, one of the greatest educators in the city of Los Angeles, Ms. Bianca Malay.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here before you. On behalf of myself, as a Westchester teacher and alum of Westchester, I'm here to present to you my awesome team of students. We have worked extremely hard this year to provide our campus with healthy food options, and I'm so looking forward to going to Aspen next Saturday. I'm going to bring up, before I go, sorry, a little nervous. I love talking to kids, but talking to adults makes me a little nervous. The aquaponics system will be the driving force behind our environmental science magnet on campus. So the students that are in the magnet will help run the farm, use the produce from the farm, which are the fish and the plants, the vegetables, to create healthy food in our culinary arts class, as well as hopefully to sell in a farmer's market that will be guided by our business and entrepreneur class. So the aquaponics farm is not just the system that we want praise for, but it's a system that we want to teach others how to build and grow throughout the city of Los Angeles.
Beautiful.
So thank you for having us, and I'm going to introduce one of the students from the team, Jordan Killigan.
All right. Come on up, Jordan.
Hello. I would like to thank the City Council for having us here and recognizing what we've done, and I would also like to thank Mr. Rosendahl for having us here. And first, I would like to recognize my team members who, if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be here speaking to you. So we have Ariel and Mia Brumfield, Isaiah Dunn, Chelsea Arzu, Jasmine Poley, Nick Davis, and Ralston Galvez. And there's also Mr. Carr and Ms. Millay, and then we have our some of the teachers that have helped us do this. We have Mr. Teagues and Mr. Starks, and then we also have some experts who helped us build this system. So we have David Rosenstein and Rafael Quesada, who are in the back. And we hope that this system will become a model for other schools throughout LAUSD, so they will all have their urban farm, so they will have healthy, organic, sustainable food for students and their community. Thank you.
Well, I want to thank everybody here. Let's give them a round of applause. I was trying to determine who gets the eggs today, since part of my urban farming are my chickens, and now that Whole Foods gives me the scraps, they're organic in everything they eat. So these are the eggs, and there are a couple of green ones in there, which are pretty exciting. So I challenge you to also go into raising chickens. Now, I'm going to let the gentleman who spoke, come on up. I hope nobody's offended by this. Come over here. On behalf of Bill Rosendahl and the City of Los Angeles, I present you the eggs from my urban farm. Bless you, brother. That way. Open them up. Thank you, Mr. President, very much for that. Remember, we're all connected, and whatever we do with the earth, it comes back to us in the most beautiful of ways. And what you're doing with water and then turning it into this, that, and the other, and we end up eating what comes out of it, is phenomenal. I now have a beehive on my roof, so I'm getting the honey as well. So we're moving in the right direction. Thank you very much, Mr. President, and thank you, Westchester. Turn in the back. I'll take a big photo back there. Yeah, just go straight ahead to the back.
Okay, Mr. Clerk, do you have an announcement about a continuance?
Yes, sir. For item 10, there's been a request to continue this matter to next Wednesday, the 26th. So that would be continuing item 10 to Wednesday, the 26th.
And for council's information, the ordinance has been transmitted to the clerk with the expectation that it'll meet up with this item on Wednesday.
Okay, without objection. Okay, now we're going to begin our public comment. Before we go to the next agenda item, we will move to item 4. I have 2 cards on item 4. Just for your information, on our general public comment, you can speak to anything that falls even indirectly to the city's jurisdiction. On the actual items, you must speak to the item. If you do not speak to the item, you will forfeit your time. If you continue to talk and disrupt the meeting as you walk away from the podium, you will be asked to leave. So with that said, on item 4, I want John Walsh and Arnold Sachs. Item 4. Mr. Walsh.
I've done a very good job. I think it was ridiculous.
His comments are irrelevant.
Generally, Arnold Sachs.
Yes, thank you. Good morning. Arnold Sachs. And thank you for clarifying the rules. The park. It's always a good idea to have a park throughout the city. Can you mention the effects of having a park in the city as it relates to, for instance, the registration of felons who have to register as sexual predators, and the fact that having a park within the area means that they cannot be in that area. So having this park, particularly in this area, will that allow the people that live within that area to get from the police a list of felons who have had to register or even as sexual predators, and then force them to be moved out of the area? Because I believe it's a state law ordinance that doesn't allow registered sex predators to be within a certain distance of parks. And so, in addition to this park, there are certain parks located in downtown LA. How do they handle that situation with the ordinance, especially with all the homeless homeless facilities and projects that are within the downtown area? If it's important enough or it's legal enough to settle that ordinance argument outside of downtown LA, why the difference in standards?
Mr. Sachs, have a good weekend. Any other cards on this, Mr. Clerk? No cards, no speakers on the queue. Open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
12 ayes. Next item, Mr. Clerk.
Mr. President, that brings us to item number 5, called Special for Cards.
Mr. John Walsh of Hollywood, California. Please come to the podium. Thank you. Good morning. Hey, item number 2 we're holding. 3 we're not doing. And this is 5.
Good morning, everyone. I hope you can hear me. HollywoodHighlands.org, and then click over to J. Walsh Confidential. Yeah. This is an important issue. This concerns destruction of records. I get scared anytime I hear destruction of records because my great-great-grandmother was in the Holocaust, and all those records were destroyed. Now, all I'm asking for you to do, you're destroying some boxes, 33 boxes of records. It would cost you $64 a year to keep those boxes. Look, and several of you have been on the MTA board. At the MTA, nothing is destroyed. It is sent to Iron Mountain. Now, these are, and in Iron Mountain, they have this gigantic subterranean, vast storage area. So I really get scared when I hear records being destroyed and burned and shredded. HollywoodHighlands.org.
Thank you very much. No other speakers on the queue. Open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
So ordered. Next item.
That brings us to item 6, called Special for Cards.
Mr. Walsh, may I ask you at this time for number 6, please? We're going to pass. No speakers on the queue. Open the roll. Close the roll. Tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
Good. And how about number 7, Mr. Clerk?
Item 7 was called Special for Cards, sir.
Mr. Walsh, you feel like pass it again?
John Walsh, blogging at HollywoodHighlands.org. 4,000 people came Wednesday to the site. Okay, this concerns, you're one of the sponsors of this, dedicating 7 intersections to various community leaders. Most of these are African American. This is very, very good, but I'm asking you now, and I trust Mr. Labange, one of the greatest African Americans ever in the history of Los Angeles is Nick Stewart. I got to meet him when he was fighting the CRA on the Ebony Theater. The Ebony Theater still stands, but everything that mentions Nick Stewart has been torn off it. Now, Nick Stewart's wife, Edna Stewart, I believe, is still alive. She goes back, she was a friend of Hattie McDaniel. She goes back to Lena Horne. She was his partner. Now, Nick Stewart's daughter has come up here several times and asked you I hope Mr. Parks is listening. He hates Nick Stewart politically. I'm asking you now, Nick Stewart, he was on Amos and Andy. He was in. He played a voice in Song of the South.
I don't believe he's talking about any of these.
All right, Mr. Hold on a second, John. Don't get upset. He just gave you some advice. All right, disrupting the meeting. We don't want that. Thank you very much. That closed that. Ms. Perry.
Very much. I just asked my colleagues for support in this matter. This is a strong effort by the faith-based community to give back the history and to document the history of South Los Angeles and the great churches who have never left South Los Angeles. So I'd appreciate your support on this item.
Very good. I think that's great work, Ms. Perry. I appreciate that greatly. No other speakers on the queue. Open the roll. Close the roll. Tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
So ordered. And Mr. Clerk, can we go to the special right now? Our city attorneys have arrived.
Mr. President, yes, we can. I must first call the roll. Alarcon, Buscaino, Englander, Garcetti, Weezer. We're going to recess the regular, and I'm calling the roll for the special. Alarcon, Buscaino, Englander, Garcetti, Weezer, Koretz, Kokorin, Labange, Parks, Perry, Reyes, Rosendahl, Zion, Weston, 12 members present, and a quorum, Mr. President.
Very good. So let's have this before us on this particular issue.
Mr. President, items 12 through and 13 are items for which public hearings have been held. 12 and 13 public hearings have been held.
12 and 13, so we have no cards on that. That's very good. Mr. Alarcon? Yes, sir?
I got to go to my office.
We're going to take Mr. Alarcon off the queue at this time, as his request. All right, on these items, Mr. Clerk, right now, what's before us?
Items 12 and 13, sir.
Good. Are there any speakers on the queue? No speakers on the queue on this item. Let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
Very good. Next item.
Mr. President, that brings us to items 14, 15, and 16. They're items for which public hearings have not been held. 10 votes are required for consideration.
So on that particular list, let's, for consideration, open the roll.
You can take that without objection if you'd like, sir.
All right, without objection. 16th, we want to refer back to personnel. 16, back to personnel. Is that correct, Mr. Koretz?
Actually, I'd like to call item 14 special.
Okay, we'll call it special. But 16, any objection? We're going back to committee on 16. We thank you, Mr. Shemlock, I believe, and also Mr. Walsh for your cards. That's back in committee. Mr. Clerk, what's before us?
Now that you've sent 16 back to the Personnel Committee without any objection, that leaves items 14 and 15. For item 14, there is an amending motion, 14A, that's motion Koretz-Rosendahl, that has been circulated and is before Council for its consideration.
On these items, sir, Mr. Kokorin, you jumped out of your seat. Are you okay?
Just because I haven't seen it yet. Just
okay. You can take a minute on this item.
Oh, okay. Mr. President, those are items where public hearing is required, and you do have cards on those matters, sir.
If you want.
You know, I don't. I don't have that card. Have me that card back. On 14?
And thank them. That's it.
I have 9. Please forgive me. It was not in the regular spot, Alan. That's not like you to make that kind of mistake there. Okay, Mr. Walsh on item 14, followed by Doug Arsenet from VICA. That's for 14. And as well as Arnold Sachs from...
John Walsh, blogging at HollywoodHighlands.org. This is number 14. This concerns citation, enforcement, and the creation of a special fund for code compliance. It has an ordinance. That means there has to be 2/3. There have to be 10 people voting for it, and they have to do it twice, this week and then next week. And this concerns animal services, and animal services has been doing a better job than it has in the past, although we continue to watch animal services, and Daniel's not here today, Daniel Gus, or he would be giving you a lot more information on what's going on. Always a pleasure to talk in front of you, Mr. Labange, HollywoodHighlands.org.
Thank you, Mr. Walsh. Mr. Arsenault.
Good morning. My name is Doug Arsenault of the Valley Industry and Commerce Association, representing more than 370 businesses that employ more than 100,000 Angelenos. VICA opposes the implementation of the Administrative Code Enforcement Program, which would impose massive administrative fines without due process. While the ACE program is set to begin with Animal Services and then the Police Department, it is expected to expand in the Departments of Building and Safety, Housing, Public Works, Transportation, and other city departments, all of which directly impact city businesses. As written, the ordinance will allow for selective enforcement and encourage witch hunts, resulting in high fines to home and business owners. It will essentially empower city inspectors to issue massive penalties to fund their departments and thereby their salaries, particularly in light of annual staff and budget cuts. The ordinance could also result in inspectors soliciting or demanding entry to property in violation of the Fourth Amendment. This threat of punitive action without due process merely emphasizes the overly restrictive and regulatory reputation of Los Angeles that causes people to purchase homes elsewhere and businesses to avoid opening offices in the city. We urge you to oppose the ACE program, as this proposal runs counter to the city's stated desire to attract business and residents who enjoy living, spending, and investing in Los Angeles. Thank you.
Arnold Sachs. Arnold, you don't mind I mentioned your hometown of Lenox, do you? I don't mind. Got it. Arnold Sachs from Lenox, California.
I have a question I will ask when I do this discussion. Thank you very much. Couple of things. As you can see, this ordinance is, if you read this closely, it's dated from July 10, 2010, and here we are, July 2013. 3 years to get a code compliance ordinance. Imagine how important it is when you want to talk about making LA a business-friendly city. And speaking of code compliance and enforcement, what about code compliance for, I don't know, do you have to have a code compliance established administratively for like homes that are in foreclosed homes? And speaking of compliance, is it different for rules and codes? Because I could have sworn the president laid down some rules here for the council chambers, and somebody wasn't in compliance, and they're still sitting here. Yet last week, got tossed out of the room for not being in compliance with the rules. So again, when you differentiate between the rules and the codes, and this is how you legislate in your chambers, what's to be expected out on the streets of the city of LA? And as the gentleman said, without rhyme or reason, or without the ability to defend or have a fair hearing, it's almost like it's become a dictatorship. What about civil liberties? What about those opportunities? What about the chance to have a hearing? So I say to you, Mr. Labange, not in compliance with the rules, that's depends on who's speaking. Is that what that means?
Thank you, Mr. Sachs. Mr. Koretz of the 5th District.
Thank you, Mr. President and colleagues. I urge your aye vote on this ordinance ACE has gone through many changes and much comment to get to this point, and 6 versions of an ordinance. I want to thank my good friend and colleague, Council President Herb Wesson, members of the Budget Committee, members of the PAW Committee, that really helped usher and deliver this final product through. In this final version, we make clear that Council must act again before there's any expansion of this. So although people may envision that this will eventually apply to building and safety and planning many years down the road, it cannot happen without a full council hearing and focus on this. As you know, I started this initial conversation many years ago. I'm now extremely excited and happy to see this come to council, and I urge your support.
Thank you very much, Mr. Koretz. Mr. Clerk, are we prepared to vote on this? There's no other speakers on the queue. Open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
So
and
ordered.
Mr. President, again, that's as amended.
As amended. Very good. Next item is item 15.
Mr. President?
Yes.
Can I have that go forthwith, please?
Absolutely, Mr. Koretz. So forthwith, Mr. Clerk. Item 15, a card by Arnold Sachs.
Yes, thank you again. Good morning, Arnold Sachs. This is the second time that this item's come before the council, and I'm somewhat surprised that you're having public comment on it. But nevertheless, the first time this item appeared was almost a comedy, because that's when Councilman Alarcon, of all the council people, was questioning the ethics of Councilman Reyes and the involved sale of this. And Councilman Alarcon's ethics, well, we won't even go there. Depends on where he lives. But a couple of things about this. There was an agreement about what to do with the property by the use of the property and changes to the property. And number 2, the funds from this sale will be deposited into the Sewer Capital Fund 761. It states here that this is the Los Angeles Administrative Code, blah, 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 established the basic guidelines for the sale of city-owned surplus property. City-owned, now, you have authorized the sale of a lot of city-owned surplus property. Oh, I don't know, in the 10 years that most of you have been on this council chambers. How many times has it gone into the Sewer Capital Fund? And what are those funds used for? That would be part of Department of Public Works. That would be part of Department of Water and Power. Would it be used for some sort of infrastructure? Would it be used to cover the pay raises for Department of Public, any of those departments? It's very obscure, and again, based on the other sale of city properties, which usually end up going to the city's general fund, why in particular is this property going to the Sewer Capital Fund, item 761? And keep up the good work.
Thank you. Stay right there, Arnold. I like your new hairdo. Hold on a second here. We're going to vote on this matter. So open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
So ordered.
And, Mr. President, the ordinance will go over 1 week for a second read.
Very good. Now we're out of the special. I want to go back to number 8.
Mr. President, would you like to adjourn the special?
Adjourn the special.
Very good, sir. That takes us to item 8, called Special for Cards.
And the special card reader right here says Arnold Sachs again. Mr. Sachs, you're up.
Like bingo. I've got a bingo card. Thank you very much. And it's good to see a whole group of people here, because now we can talk about the revenue portions that aren't discussed during the city budgets, and this should be one of them. The revenue that's created by the Street Furniture Fund. And certain council districts have Street Furniture Revenue Fund, certain council districts have Oil Pipeline Revenue Fund, certain council districts have AB 1290 funds, certain council districts have billboard revenue funds, certain council districts have
Mr. President, he is not talking about this item.
All right, Mr. Sachs, that's the city attorney. Please talk about this item.
Talk about this item. The Street Furniture Revenue Fund, $48,000 in District 1. Can we find out, when you put these items on the agenda, can you please include the balance for these revenue funds for the public's benefit? $48,000 in street revenue funds leaves a balance of how much in District 1? You need to be aware of these revenue funds. As I say, they're not part of the city budget. They go to the council districts, but that doesn't even count there. They go to the council offices. This is funding that should be going to your neighborhood council offices, your neighborhood Department of Neighborhood Empowerment, whichever. You should have the opportunity to spend some of this money because it's more important. You're closer to the neighborhood than your councilman ever will be. Thank you.
And Mr. Sachs, stay right there. No speakers on the queue.
Veronica.
Open the roll. Close the roll. Tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
12 ayes. Very good. Let's go to item number 9.
Item 9 called special for cards.
And the speaker of the day is Arnold Sachs again from Pass. All right, Arnold. Oh, very good. Mr. Walsh. Mr. John Walsh. You have 1 minute, John, if you would like to use it.
John Walsh, blogging at HollywoodHighlands.org. This concerns the July 1st, 10th annual Los Angeles Coliseum fireworks show. The fireworks shows are tolerable in places, urban centers like the Coliseum. Now, I have a reputation for predicting pretty good reputation. These fireworks shows that you have at the bowl, one of these days, it's going to start a big fire.
All right, that completes Mr. Walsh. Don't go far, Mr. Walsh. Let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote. Forthwith for Mr. Parks. Forthwith for Mr. Parks. Public comment right now. General public comment, Mr. Clerk. We have 2 cards right here. I'd like to call on Mr. Walsh and then Mr. Sachs. Is Mr. Sachs still here? Very good. Yes, he is. Talking to the third person, Arnold. Mr. Walsh.
John Walsh, blogging at HollywoodHighlands.org. When I was talking about Nick Stewart, I wanted to point out when I was so rudely interrupted by the racist city attorney that he was the voice of Brer Rabbit in Song of the South. Okay, you know I've been up here and I'm talking primarily to everybody who's not white, everybody an African American. I have said over and over again, if you come to Hollywood, you are not welcome. Every club will discriminate against you. But it's gotten worse. Now, this woman who was stabbed to death, yes, she has an Hispanic name, but she is 100% culturally African American. She had a small child. She was stabbed to death. Now, on that corner, you have the sheriffs guarding the MTA. It didn't happen there. It happened where the LAPD is. She was stabbed to death by 3, they weren't transients. They were low-level drug dealers who were on their own stuff, and she bled to death. She bled to death before the paramedics showed up with 3 stab wounds, and she was an African American. And there isn't one damn, these people up here, it's an all-white jury. You can only trust me. Why did this happen? This happened because they're open season on African Americans in Hollywood. The gangs of other ethnicities consider anybody black as their enemy, because they control the drug dealing in Hollywood. Now, I risk my life when I say these things. I risk my life. And the number one thing we have to do is and where's Eric? Everybody in the entire world knows. Come to Hollywood, get stabbed to death. HollywoodHighlands.org for the truth.
Mr. Sachs.
Yes, thank you. Good morning again, Arnold Sachs. Again, I'd like to repeat for people here, maybe you weren't paying or taking part in the budget discussions and the fact that A and B, the city in its last budget discussions actually have 8 accounts for them to have emergency budget services, general fund services, few other, eight altogether, and if you can go back and review that. But nobody reviewed the revenue. That's the revenue that's not counted in the budget. So when they cut your services, they can backfill with that revenue and make them look like they're really doing something. But it actually should be your revenue. Last year, the Controller, Wendy Gruhl, did an audit on AB 1290 funds. That's money that the city was getting back from redevelopment, and even though redevelopment is no longer with us, they're still getting AB 1290 funds, $40 million worth. So you have $40 million, and trust me on this one, maybe not trust me, but you can be sure if some council members are getting AB 1290 funds, it doesn't go to all the council districts, but whatever their share is, another council district is getting an equal fund from the Sunshine Canyon Landfill Amenities Fund, from the pipeline revenue, from bus bench revenue. So you have 6 or 7 different sources of revenue that aren't included in the budget, come to about $280 million. That's not counted for. Call your council person up and ask them about that next time you have potholes. Speaking of potholes, Measure R local return. You want to see where that money's going? Come down and ride the streetcar. $200 million for the street.
Thank you. Mr. Goodman, is that a general public comment card? Sergeants, would you please take his card? Mr. Goodman, you're up now. You're the last speaker. General public comment.
Thank you so much, Mr. President. I just want to come and thank this council on behalf of the Crenshaw Subway Coalition, specifically you, Council President, Councilmember Perry, and Councilmember Parks, and Councilmember Rosendahl for championing the effort to find Measure R local funds to help bring the Leimert Park Village Station to fruition. This is a battle that the Crenshaw community has had for well over 5.5 years, and we've appreciated the support of this council and appreciate the specific allocation of resources locally to make it a reality. I also want to say that, we've come across information that indicates that 3 of the 4 finalists for the construction contract for the Metro Line projects requested that the final key remaining design issue on the Crenshaw corridor be resolved. They actually suggested that they be allowed to bid the Crenshaw Line the Crenshaw Line project with the tunnel in Park Mesa Heights from 48th to 59th Street. We've confirmed that at least one of those 3 said that it was a simple 5% increase within the project construction contract value, which essentially amounts to about $60 million. This is a number that's significantly lower than the $269 that the MTA board acted upon back in May of 2011, and we'd hope that we could continue the momentum that we've got, started by Councilmember Park, Perry, Weston, and Rosenthal, to encourage the MTA to work with our local, state, and federal partners to find the resources and to break down any bureaucratic burdens that we might have toward implementing the tunnel to make this the type of project that the region wants and the community needs. Thank you again, council members, and we look forward to continuing to work with each of you in the next session, either in your new capacity as private citizens or in your continued capacities as council members.
after my father left, my mother.
Okay, now it's time for us to take up
My brother, and they
our last item. We're going to go back to item 2. Reason for the delay is members concerned are working on some language to tweak the item. So let's start off with Rose Ochi, Fred Gaines, and Janner Dumbroma. I got a feeling I'm going to have a difficult time with these names. Rose, please come forward. Good to see you. Go right ahead.
Good morning, Rose Ochi. As a young child, I was corralled and had to live in Santa Anita stables for many months until we were railroaded to Arkansas, where we were there for 4 years, incarcerated by our own government. 30 years later, I became Sue Embry's pro bono lawyer to get Manzanar designated as a historic site. However, DWP was vehemently, especially the president, Mike Gates, was against it. However, City Council, under the leadership of John Ferraro, supported our effort, and ultimately Tom Bradley signed our language. So today, Manzanar stands there as a symbol of our country's being willingness to recognize mistakes in the past. This year also marks the anniversary of Ronald Reagan's signing of the Redress and Reparation Act, and he based a lot of his findings on the Wartime Commission, who found that the roundup of 120,000 persons of Japanese ancestry, mostly citizens and children, was based on a number of findings of the Wartime Commission about the lack of political leadership, war hysteria, and racial prejudice. Recently, well, 2 years ago, Supervisor Antonovich, when he learned from George Yoshinaga that Santa Anita was used as a detention center during World War II, he moved to work with Santa Anita to create...
Finish your sentence.
1 second. All right, fine. We just recently, the federal government released that Tuna Canyon was a detention center during World War II. And so we've moved forward ahead since then.
Thank you, Rose. Fred Gaines.
Thank you, Mr. President, honorable members. Fred Gaines of Gaines and Stacey on behalf of the property owners, Snowball West Investments. We have pending entitlements for 224-unit workforce housing project at this location. We have no objection whatsoever to having a monument erected at this site. In fact, our EIR for the project already requires that. What we do have an objection to is the council overriding the recommendation of the planning staff, the unanimous recommendation of the Cultural Heritage Commission, that the findings cannot be made and that there is no basis to designate this property as a city historic site. The city, there are different levels of historic designation, federal, state. CEQA has a process that requires you to do historic studies, all of which have been complied with. The city process is one where if you're designated, you have a limit on demolition. It's really a building permit ordinance. You have a limit on building permits that alter. And the reason your staff and your commission, who are not hesitant to designate these sites, said that this does not qualify is because there are no buildings. There is nothing left on this site that would be affected by this ordinance. The cause here is obviously just. This is a site that has historic the detention center was there, and it's historic. And the result will be achieved. The EIR is going to require this. Your Plum Committee made a recommendation, and we put a working group together to decide exactly what goes there. We ask that you support your Plum Committee, your Cultural Heritage Commission, and your city planning staff. What you're being asked to do today is skip that. Don't follow the law. Make findings that no historic expert has made. Put us into a law that doesn't apply in this circumstance on a motion that we, frankly, saw 2 minutes ago to designate some undescribed area. We ask that you support your Plum Committee recommendation, and we look forward to working out the details.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, do I have it? I think it's Janner. Maybe it's oh,
no problem.
Yanner?
Yannick.
Okay, come
Yannick.
right ahead, sir. In
Yannick
fact,
Dombrova.
for the record, state your name, and I'm sorry for butchering it.
No problem. Yannick Dombrova. I'm the architect for the project. I wanted to let you know that in 2011, when we took over the project, we redesigned the project to save the Oak Grove. We were aware of the history of the site, and we got approval from the owners, and so we did. The trees are probably the best living memorial that we could leave for these people. And as someone whose parents survived the Holocaust in Poland, my father was placed before a firing squad. I understand the damage that was done, and I will personally work very hard to make sure there's an appropriate commemoration.
Thank you, sir. Okay, now we're going to begin our discussion on this item. And I would like to call on the chair of planning, followed by Mr. Alacon. Mr. Reyes.
Thank you, Council President. Colleagues, this was a very emotional issue in committee. The discussion was very thorough. The discussion was long, but very necessary. And I first want to say that it is important that we uphold and memorialize the history of our communities that make up this great city. In this particular case, the internments did occur. It did happen on this site. And that's history that needs to be remembered. That's history that needs to be taught. As we heard in the past, the more we know about our history, the more we can prevent future mistakes, future problems. So we need to commemorate the sacrifices, the pain of our forefathers, the men and women who went through such a devastating experience. One of the key issues here, and I want to thank my colleague, Councilor Englander, for providing a scenario, an approach that I believe celebrates not only our history, but also memorializes what was wrong. In this instance, we have the opportunity to, one, provide a process that allows for a dialogue, understanding between the advocates that are here, the owner, and the council member of the district. Up to this point, and it's on record, there was one gap in not having a conversation that allowed us to complete the dialogue. This provides the conversation to occur. It also allows us as a city to be inclusive to all parties. I want to thank my colleagues in being able to put forth a motion that I think is circulating now that speaks to the ability for us to engage in a constructive manner with the council member of the district who is the council member elect. The council member that is current today, I believe, is in a place where this dialogue can occur, because during committee, colleagues, I asked how many folks in the audience, those that were there, understood or made aware of the potential in memorializing this portion of our history, and not many hands went up. How many had a dialogue with the owner? Not many hands went up. So it was clear we needed to put together a working group so that we could define these specific measures, establish parameters that will hopefully accommodate not only the advocates, the historians, but the owner and the elected office. And so that working group was one of the directives that we had at that time. But what's before you now is Councilman Alarcon's desire to bring it to the floor now. I have no problems with that, because I think what is before us, the motion, speaks to the intent of the committee's report to complete the circle of conversation, to establish understanding, to honor the history, and to allow for the developer to have a three-way conversation with the council member, with the advocates, and understanding their role as owners. So I want to assure you that this is done in the spirit of transparency, is done in the spirit of protecting not only our history, but protecting the city in its role, using its planning police powers, and allowing the developer to present its proposal with the council member in the future to be able to work through that detail in a working group. So I would encourage that you review what is before us as a set of amendments. I want to thank again Councilman Englander for his hard work in bridging this gap. And I want to thank Councilman Alarcon for his cooperation, even though this is coming up now as opposed to what the committee directed. And I have no problems with that, because I think the intent is positive for all. So thank you so much.
Mr. Alarcon.
Council members, I want to thank Councilman Reyes. I do believe we have reached a point where we can agree to designate this site as a historical site. The fundamental problem, I believe, was in the incorrectness of the determination by the Cultural Heritage Commission, because the primary basis for their finding that this should, their determination that this should not be a cultural site was based on the fact that there are no structures there. Well, this is a list of 19 locations that we have designated as historical that do not have structures. Furthermore, this site is bountiful with trees, oak trees, my favorite tree. And we have designated 20 other locations because of the trees. So that's 39 sites that have been designated in direct contradiction to the findings that the the Cultural Heritage Commission made in this particular case. The egregious thing in this particular case is that this history is so important. It's so important that even the opponents are saying that they would like to designate and recognize this history. The fact is that people were very quiet about the internment of Japanese, Italians, and Germans at the time of World War II. And after World War II, they continued to be quiet. They were embarrassed. People didn't want to talk about it. But history cries out for the truth. And the truth is dictated by the facts. And the facts are that the United States of America interned over 2,000 people at Tuna Canyon. And that's history that we should not forget. So we are here to ask the Council to join, hopefully unanimously, to say that this site is important to history, to say that structures are necessary to make history important is to fundamentally have a misunderstanding of what history is all about. Events are critical to history. Most of the important events in history do not have structures on them. Think of the battlefields that the federal government has designated. Do they have structures on them? But lives were fought for on those sites, and those sites have been designated. So even here in Los Angeles, we designated a Disney studio that is a Gelson's Market. Come on, give me a break. Is this not more important than that? If it is, I probably voted for it, Mr. LeBon.
I got it designated.
All I'm saying is that history is not as important as the fact that the United States interned 2,000 U.S. citizens. That was a mistake, and we need to recognize it in order for us to move forward and give that history back to our young. The Sansei and the Yansei deserve to understand their history, and this is a way that the city can give them that gift of history. So with that, Mr. Englander and I have worked out, I guess we could call it a compromise, but actually it's a step toward a process for full recognition designation. What it does is it amends the recommendation. It does establish a working group. It directs the planning department to establish this working group with the chairman being the council member of the district to determine exactly what the acreage will be. It also designates the property in general as a historic site with direction to the working group to come back in 60 days with a minimum of 1 acre designation to be worked out by the group, where that 1 acre would be and what it might look like in terms of reflecting the history. I think this is a good deal for Los Angeles. It's a great deal for the Japanese American community. It's a great opportunity for the Sunland Tujunga community to engage with their new council member in making that determination. It's an opportunity for the, as you heard, the developer to reflect on his own history and give back what was taken from his family in a way that he can with this particular development. I think it's a win-win-win for all parts, and it is something that's certainly needed. So I want to thank Mitch Englander, Mr. Wesson, who drives these things in so many interesting ways, and of course Ed Reyes. But most importantly, I want to thank Lloyd Hitt from the Sunland Tujunga community for bringing this to my attention, and all the people who support this from Sunland Tujunga and beyond. People came. This is on the web. 1,000 people from all over the country signed on with this. Mike Gatto's sister, who is the president of she's the director of the Italian American Museum. We want to thank her for being here. But would all the people who support this please stand up? Thank you very much. This is your victory.
Mr. Englander.
Thank you very much. I got very interested in this for a couple of reasons. One, from my own family's heritage, which I don't have to dive deep on, as some of you know, but also the active engagement from the community and concern that they didn't have a seat at the table, that this property could be forever lost if not designated or memorialized. And it was so sensitive and culturally important that I said I've got to say what I need to say and when I need to say it. That's why I was elected. And it's not about being in a specific district. It's about caring for everyone. And I took one out of Ed Reyes' playbook and have been able to watch Ed as the leader of Plum and in so many different, very difficult situations, try to navigate all parties to get them to the table, to cooperate, to collaborate, to discuss, to plan together. And he's been very good at that. And I looked at this as an opportunity and started asking the question during the hearings. Have you guys actually met and talked to each other, from the owners to the different organizations that have been involved, and bringing in even an expert like Ken Bernstein, who is just phenomenal in navigating and figuring out what should be done for cultural heritage protections, and has done a terrific job. And where this was a little different than some of the other properties we work on, because it's not a city-owned facility. And if you look at the motion, we even put in here Griffith Park, Chatsworth Reservoir, the Tim's Landing in San Pedro, all of these are city properties. It's certainly easier to do most of these on city-owned land than somebody else's land. But we wanted that landowner to be sensitive to this as well and have them to have a seat at the table. So we established this idea of this working group, and again, taking one from Ed Reyes' playbook. He's been very successful in getting people to work together in the past, and I thought there was a great opportunity to see if we could do that, and we were able to do that. We've now established that as a recommendation from the committee. I understand there's already a meeting taking place, I believe, next week that is scheduled, led by Mr. Bernstein and also CD7, which will be intimately involved. I think this motion takes it a step further. I believe the city attorney has some technical language that we've got to, you can't declare, but we have to, there's certain ways we have to fix something in here, and I guess we'll get that language right before we vote in a second. But in any event, the important thing here is that we're moving forward with two things. One, we're establishing the fact that this is a sensitive, cultural, significant, and important heritage location that needs to be forever memorialized. But two is we're bringing together this also working group to figure out how that should be done. Not just do it and forget about it. Don't just put it in the city's books and walk away, but bring people together to work together on what's important to them. And so I just want to thank everybody for all your interest, and this is really important. We've had from Rose Ochi, thank you so much for all you have always done for the city. James Ogazaki, so many friends and family members that I've worked with over the years that have been so involved. I truly appreciate it. And I believe this is coming from a good place on where we've reached this with Mr. Alarcon's help to get to this space as well. And I want to thank you all very much. Thank you.
Mr. Rosendahl.
Thank you, Mr. President. Many of you know that we have put a historic marker at the corner of Lincoln and Venice. I went to Manzanar. I went with a group of my constituents from West LA. There were 7 folks who had been in Manzanar and told me one horror story after another. Look, I'm German. My parents were immigrants. We got some harassment. FBI went up into our attic and looked around. But, you know, we looked white and all, so we weren't getting all of the abuse. Japanese Americans did. When our President Roosevelt got up, and thank God future presidents have said, we apologize for this. But when he got up and said, folks who are Japanese looking within 500 miles of the coast, let's put them into arrest. I went to Manzanar and saw what happened. Of course they got rid of the structures. They didn't want to show anybody anything. DWP did that, or whoever did it, did it. So we have a couple of models of what it would look like in Manzanar from that experience. But I agree with Mr. Englander and Mr. Reyes that the process of inclusion has to happen. I don't want to rush anything. I believe in it. I think it should get a historical marker. I think this should be worked out with the Japanese American community of how we go about it. But I can tell you, having been in the military and seeing young men and women in uniforms at the encampment with their parents was unbelievable. And to see the people who were in this internment create food and gardens and pleasure. I mean, the Japanese American community is so industrious and so together. Even in that horrible moment, we can learn from one another and what the Japanese Americans have done. So we will never forget this, and I look forward to the process that includes everybody in it. Thank you all very much. Thank you.
Mr. Labange. Mr. Labange.
Yes, sir. I didn't hit it, but I'm okay with this because you found a resolution.
No, I called on you.
Oh, you're calling me to
Purposely,
speak?
yes.
Okay, so it's so key that you understand the importance and value of history. I think, Mr. Rosendahl, you're very key on that. I was very proud to be with Rose Ochi and many others at Manzanar when we first got elected to dedicate it, but I was much prouder when I looked out and saw Hideo Matsunaga. Hideo Matsunaga was my scoutmaster. He took us up to Owens Valley in the 1960s to climb Mount Whitney. Yet I didn't know that he was interned in Manzanar. And then several years later, I'm a council member, and I'm there presiding over this. And there he was. And he's still a great man, retired from the MWD, living on Panorama Terrace. All that history is so important. I also will say, too, I'm looking for our Ken Bernstein, if he's right there. He's over there talking as they huddle there, whatever the deal is. Sites are important. In Griffith Park right now, I want to tell all of you here, including all those watching on television, thank you to the leadership of the Pacific American Volunteer Association. Every Saturday, the Korean American group of seniors comes out and cleans and beautifies the Dell. That's the site of where the Tonga Gabrielina Indian village was. All that there is a marker there, but that marker is important. And we're going to enhance that marker, Mr. Rosendahl, so people find a way to connect back to history. So whether it is as an area, whether it is as large as this space or not, it's important to have that site there. And I am proud, just to want to let you know, and I know it's very different. Mr. Alico was very direct there. I was proud when I first got here that I went upstairs to the Cultural Heritage Board on the 50th floor, and Carl Denzel, who was the head of it, of Southwest Museum, was the president. And the president of that, along with Dr. Robert Winter, Ileana Welsh was the director, that I was able to get and argue for the site for Walt Disney, because Walt Disney, all gone, but he came from Kansas on a train, came out, lived at his uncle's house on Kingsbury near Vermont and Hollywood Boulevard. Then he started his first studio on Hyperion. And James Okazaki, you were at LADOT to help me get the sign that is up on Hyperion right now for that. So someone walking by sees a site, connects to the past. In the future, Mr. Gaines, the distinguished mayor of Calabasas, you will find that there will be something that will work out that will provide people an opportunity to remember the future, which is so important. Because everybody's come through before, and if we don't remember our past, it's not good for our future. Good and bad in the past, it's so important to remember the future that is there. So I could go on and on and on to try to articulate this, Mr. President, but I think the compromise is so important and the site is so key to do that. And I haven't had a chance to meet the property owner, but to say that that is important history, it is important history, and you figure a way to make it right, which is key on that. And then whatever is developed will be developed through the proper process there as we go on. So I thank you for this opportunity to express that so well. And I also want to tell you this for everybody's here. As someone, I read every plaque in the city of Los Angeles. Wherever I see a plaque, I read it, which is so important. And if you walk up Western Canyon, above that site in Ferndale, you'll see a tree. And under the tree is a plaque. It's called the 1 Mile Tree. Mr. President, you know why they call it the 1 Mile Tree?
No, Mr. LeBon.
It's 1 mile from Los Feliz Boulevard, as simple as that. So this is important for our history. It's very important for your history, too. And hopefully it all can be worked out. Thank you.
Mr. LeBon, thank you. You're good. Okay, before I call on Mr. Reyes, Mr. Sachs.
Yes, thank you. It's Arnold Sachs, and it's great, actually, for this recognition to occur. And I'm somewhat reminded of the County Board of Supervisors. I believe last year, Supervisor Ridley Thomas made a motion to apologize for the internment. And the amazing part about that motion, it was 20 years after the government, the federal government, had made the same apology. And so while you listen to the accolades from the council people here, keep in mind 11 years, 51 weeks that some of these councilmen have been in office. 11 years, 51 weeks. Because next week is week 52 and they're out of office. And they only got 3 terms. 11 years, 51 weeks to come up with this recognition for this property. Keep that in mind.
Thank you. Okay. Mr. Reyes or Mr. Krikorian?
Thank you, Mr. President. I just feel compelled to respond to Mr. Sachs' silly comment. This has been something that's been exceptionally important to this community for a lot longer than 11 years. The community of Sunland Tujunga has been fighting, over the precious nature of this property for a wide variety of reasons for a very, very long time. And the work that people like Lloyd Hitt have put in to clearly document the history of this site and the historical significance of this site, not just to Sunland Tujunga, but to all of Los Angeles and all of America, frankly, is what really should be recognized and celebrated. And I just want to thank everybody from this community who's been fighting for so long and for so hard to preserve the important history of this site. And I just want to recognize Mr. Alarcon, too, for this measure. I think it's an important step that we need to take. There have been a number of folks who've been participating today and trying to work out a sensible solution, and I think that it has been, and I think that it makes sense for us to move forward in the way that Mr. Reyes and Mr. Alarcon are going to be discussing. But I think it just really needs to be said in response to this kind of silliness. This is generated by this community. This community has been coming up with these ideas. This community has been documenting its history. And this community deserves, I think, the respect that we should show it by making sure that its precious history is preserved.
Mr. Krikorian, please. I have a question. I don't remember if I heard you say what Mr. Sachs's statements were. What were they? Were they silly? I just want to make sure I heard it right.
Did I only say that twice?
So you did say it twice that they were silly. Thank you. Mr. Reyes.
Thank you, Council President. Colleagues, you have a motion in front of you, 2A. Well, number 1, it states declare at least 1 acre of the property located at. We want to do a technical change that allows us to be on firm legal ground and strike at least 1 acre of the property located at and put at a minimum in the Oak Grove with legal boundaries to be determined, and they'll come back with that on Tuesday. Councilor Alarcon agrees, Councilor Englander agrees that that will ensure that, again, we are on firm legal ground, and then we come back on Tuesday with those boundaries. If we substitute, and that's what my motion, and it's really the work of Councilor Alarcon Englander and everyone participating here that allows us to provide very clear instructions. And I want to thank the City Attorney for her support in making sure we do this correctly, as well as the Planning Department. So thank you for that. And that would be the action of this committee, of this council, should you support. So are we ready to vote, or there's more on the queue?
I have one more person on the queue, which is Mr. Alarcon, and then Mr. Parks.
What that amendment was, or what he's changing?
If you look at 2A, there's paragraph number 1. After the capital letters declare, there is the following direction that says at least 1 acre of the property located at. If we cross those words out and put in declare at a minimum in the Oak Grove at with the address, with the understanding that we're going to continue this item to Tuesday, where we will have specific legal boundaries that allows us to move forward on firm legal ground. So that would be the action of this council with the agreement of all parties concerned. And I do want to, again, thank all of you that are here in the audience. I know in committee I might look a little too objective or too callous in some, but believe me, it is with the intent of grasping your goal and making sure our grandchildren never forget what happened in the past to our grandparents. And that's the intent of I believe, this body. So I want to thank you for your patience, and I hope we can all work this out.
Okay, before I call on Mr. Alarcon to close, I do want to say I'm proud of the work that Mr. Reyes, Mr. Englander, and Mr. Alarcon did. And Richard said he was inspired by his picture. But I think that we have a working product, and this is government at its best. So anyway, Mr. Englander, good job. Ed, good job. Richard, good job. And I know, Mr. Krikorian, you added some sensibility, and I love you for that. All right, to close, Mr. Alarcon.
Well, more than that, Mr. Krikorian represented this area, and thank you for that response. I didn't hear what he said, but I'm sure you were protecting my interests, so thank you very much for that. This is the most workable solution. The city attorney was concerned about the fact that we did not specifically designate the boundaries and might create some legal dilemma in the future. So with that, I accept the action to reconsider this on Tuesday. Essentially what we're doing is we're moving to continue this matter till Tuesday with an indication that we intend to designate this area, 1 acre of this area, as a historic site, and allow the working group, direct the working group to convene to determine if there should be a broader recognition or some other, and what that recognition is going to look like. And so the Sunlitang community, the Japanese American community, the Italian community, German community, to the extent they're interested, will participate as well, and the developer will be able to offer his whatever his offerings may be to the committee. And so with that, I think this is a good workout, and I want to thank Mr. Reyes, Mr. Englander, Mr. Krikorian, and the city attorney in particular for helping us through this. I promise I'll be nice to you when we negotiate this out. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Mr. Alarcon. We are going to the other cards. We're going to read them into the record so that it'll be part of this entire discussion. And without objection, this item will be continued until Tuesday.
And pardon me, sir, Tuesday is June 25.
June 25. Mr. Reyes.
Council President, I wanted to acknowledge Assemblymember Jimmy Gomez was in the room with us. Hello, Jimmy. He is a newly elected assembly member who is probably already knee-deep in a lot of issues. I want to thank him for his hard work. I want to say hello.
Yeah. First, Mr. President, council members, thank you for letting me be here on a Friday. I'm usually in Sacramento Monday through Thursday, so this is the only opportunity I get to come by and say hello. But I also want to take the time, since you will be recognizing our good friend and council member Ed Reyes' 12 years on Tuesday. I want to take a few minutes to kind of just say thank you for all the work that he has done. You know, his district, the 1st Council District, covers a large percentage of my assembly district, and over the last 12 years, he's been the embodiment of a public servant working on issues of, you know, housing, affordable housing, open space, public safety, economic development, and we can't leave out the LA River and what he's done with the LA River. He's been a champion when it's come to the LA River and its revitalization, and I can say this for a fact, that my job would be a lot more difficult if it wasn't for Councilmember Reyes. So I'm here to, on behalf of the State Assembly, to present him a little token of our appreciation.
Wow, Jimmy. Thank you.
So let's give him a round of applause.
Oh, better than that. Let's give Big Ed. Good job, Ed. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you for that very nice presentation. Mr. Clerk, for the record, we note the cards, or do we read them into the record?
I believe the council president indicated we would read them into the record.
All right, let's read them.
The cards would be submitted from the following: James Okazaki, Nancy Kyoko Oda, William Lloyd Mitt, Carrie Kababa, Mariana Gatto, Munson A. Kwok, Michelle Magalang, Jean-Paul de Guzman, Zinoub Abdelghani, Kathy Masoka, Mark Sturdivant, Joanne Kumamoto, and Claudia Culling.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. So that is continued to Tuesday. Thank you all. Very special. Next item.
Mr. President, Council has motions for posting and referral.
So ordered.
The desk is clear.
Desk is clear. Any announcements? Mr. Rosendahl.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. President. The 4th annual Delray Art Walk, Sunday, June 23rd, from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. in Delray. Many of you don't know Delray. It's been there longer than Marina Del Rey. It's over 105 years old. It's a beautiful part of my beach community. The walk starts at 12123 Braddock Drive in Los Angeles. That's 12123. The Del Rey Art Walk includes 10 locations with 20 artists showing many different styles of art and musical performances by local artists. Come out and enjoy the beautiful neighborhood of Del Rey. For a complete list of locations, please go to delrayart.blogspot.com. And of course, there's always Venice Beach. Today's the 21st. We start our summer solstice, a beautiful moment on the clock as we are getting to the brightest hours of the day right now. And Venice Beach is a place to go as well this weekend.
Thank you very much. It is the longest day of the year, the solstice. And if you're not close to Venice Beach, you're welcome to come to Mount Hollywood anytime between 6 and 8:15 tonight, where the sun will set into the ocean in beautiful Venice Beach. But we'll be at Mount Hollywood in Griffith Park celebrating the solstice. I also will remind everybody on Sunday is Ciclavia on Wilshire Boulevard, starting from Grand Avenue, going all the way west to Fairfax Avenue in the heart of the very special Miracle Mile District. Ciclavia this Sunday coming up. Any other announcements? Mr. Zine.
I'd like to acknowledge the City of Hope. They're celebrating their 100 years helping people. They have a major convention this weekend. I'm on their Board of Governors and just wanted to inform everyone the City of Hope is there to help folks that have certain illness, and thank you for the 100 years of supporting those individuals, and congratulations to those attending the convention this weekend.
Very good. And also, Mr. Rosendahl, may I add, on your behalf, you welcome the community, not just Westchester neighborhood, but the city as well, for the open house tour of the Tom Bradley International Wing at LAX. Please.
Let me say this, Mr. Labange. You are such a great cheerleader for our great city that is the most important thing to say today. We've spent, colleagues, between $1.3 billion and almost $1.8 billion on modernizing the Tom Bradley Terminal. We know that's the first spot somebody goes through when they come from all over the world. And you know we're a #1 destination airport in America. It's looking beautiful. 9 o'clock tomorrow morning, rededicating the Tom Bradley bust. So if you're into looking at what we've done there, which is great, you can be proud of it as a city, and remember Tom Bradley and his incredible leadership, and see the great entrance to the United States of America at LAX. Thank you.
That's very good there, and I'm going to be there, Mr. Rosendahl, and I was glad to say that I will mention your name highly, because I know it's early in the day for that hour, but also I like what you said about Tom Bradley and the diversity that he brought forward back in 1973 when he came into City Hall as mayor for 20 years, and so many accomplishments that is there.
My show, that this show, blah, 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 he was so positive about it. He was a positive influence on the private sector as well as the public sector with his leadership. Very inspirational.
Right, and we also want to congratulate Mr. Villaraigosa, because part of the wing there is named after Mr. Villaraigosa.
Right.
So
yes.
for all his work in the champion. But really, very quickly, Mr. Rosendahl, started with you in the 11th, but a big giant push from now Congresswoman Janice Hahn and her work at the head of the commission.
We miss
I
Janice
could talk forever about Janice Hahn, and I gotta stop
my
me,
sister.
Mr. City Attorney.
I miss her a lot,
She
Joe.
did such a great
She's
job.
great.
All right, everybody. Any more announcements? Seeing none, any adjourning motions? Mr. Alarcon, please all rise for adjourning motions. Sergeants, please all rise.
Council members, I ask that we adjourn in the memory of Robert Albert Mesa, otherwise known as Uncle Bob. He was born on March 6, 1942. He died Thursday, June 13th. Born in Barstow, California, Uncle Bob came to Los Angeles in the early 20s and lived in the Boyle Heights area of Los Angeles. He's the youngest of 5 children of Anita Emmanuel Mesa and the youngest brother of Mary Cedillo, the mother of Councilmember-elect Gilbert Cedillo. Like all his brothers, Uncle Bob played a part in raising Mary's children, including Gilbert, babysitting them during the summer and helping care for them when Mary needed help. Uncle Bob married and had one son, Eric. In the late 70s, Uncle Bob came out as gay. He was very popular in the gay bar scene as a bartender at many of the cool, hip bars around town. He also worked for the old RTD before it became the MTA. For the past 27 years, he's been with the love of his life, his lifelong partner, Peter Gomez. Uncle Bob was a very charismatic and charming man who had an avid love for civic affairs, his family, and his community. A sophisticated working-class man, Uncle Bob is survived by his partner, Peter, son Eric, 2 granddaughters, 3 brothers, Daniel, Richard, and Louis, and many loving nieces and nephews. Councilmember-elect Cedillo credits him for his sartorial interests.
Thank you very much, Mr. Alarcon. Mr. Zine.
Thank you. This is for Deanna Lynn Hartman, passed away Sunday, June 9th. Deanna was a former local radio DJ and host of the Hollywood Christmas Parade for the past 7 years. She was a community activist and volunteered for many charities and did personal appearances. Her favorite was the Children's Hospital of Los Angeles. Deanna Lynn Hartman was born on September 15, 1972 in Granada Hills. She was the youngest of 3 children. July of 2012, she was diagnosed with stage 4B cervical cancer. Doctors gave her very little time on this earth. After a round of chemotherapy, which was more harmful than productive, she decided to fight by treating holistically. With her partner at her side, John Strand, both Deanna and John went to work. Within 30 days, Deanna was feeling better, and after 3 months, she had kidney function, signs that her health was improving. Soon after, she and John set up a nonprofit to help late-stage cancer patients. They had found out that there are little or no treatments for them. The Big Dream Foundation was born. Deanna and John were able, with private holistic doctors, treat 6 other patients facing late-stage cancer. Because of Deanna Lynn Hartman and John Strand's starting the Big Dream Foundation, 6 other late-stage cancer patients are alive today and in remission. Unfortunately, Deanna died on June 9th from complication after being treated by a conventional method. She kept the cancer in check by pure will and positive affirmation. It was the biggest shock to lose her after all the positive things she was doing to help others. She showed no fear and was the biggest fighter anyone ever knew. Although Deanna and John had made personal vows to each other, Deanna wanted most of all to have her dream wedding and wear her dress as she walked with the love of her life. Deanna Lynn Hartman was to be married to John Strand on a white sandy beach on June 15th, 2013. She passed away on June 9th. May she rest in peace.
Thank you very much. Second by Mr.
Deanna
Rosendahl.
Lynn Hartman.
Thank you. Mr. Parks.
I ask that we adjourn in memory of Minnie Hannah Buckingham, who was born in April 1920 in New Orleans, Louisiana, passed away in May 2013. During her formative years, she spent in New Orleans, also Memphis, Tennessee, St. Louis, Missouri, and she often spoke of these memorable years growing up in these cities. She attended John A. Craig Elementary School in New Orleans, and recall watching Louis Armstrong performing on Basin Street while walking to and from her home on St. Peter Street. She enjoyed family, friends, her job, travel, politics, and sports. She lived her life to the fullest and helped others along the way. If I can help someone along the way was her theme. She helped so many people throughout her life. She continued helping others even after moving to San Francisco in the mid-50s. While living in the Bay Area, she helped families that lost everything during the infamous Oakland fire. She's employed as a nurse, postal worker, and custodian. She retired from Bechtel Group Incorporated in 1997. She was committed to all of her employment endeavors, especially Bechtel. While working at Bechtel, she worked long past the normal retirement age. Her co-workers really loved her and showed her appreciation in her past retirement. She traveled throughout the United States and was as well as parts of Canada. When she came to politics and sports, she was quite conversed in the national and international level. Meeting and taking a photo with Ronnie Lott and Jerry Weiss was the ultimate because of her support of the San Francisco 49ers. She's survived by a host of family members. Her memorial services were held in May 2013. We also ask that we adjourn in memory of Pauletta Angela D'Souza. She was born in January 1942, and she passed away in June 2013. She had a passion for her family and music. She worked in the music industry over 50 years. She worked with a number of artists such as George Howard, LTD, Ike Turner, Esther Phillips, Eloise Laws, Paul Russo, and many others. She began working at AM&M Records and then moved to 4 Out Records. She's survived by a host of family members, one of which is Denise, who is a city employee and works for Rec and Parks and runs the Jim Gilliam Recreation Center.
Members, let's remember all those who went before us. Think of their families. Continue to serve the city well. This meeting is now adjourned. Thank you.